Welcome everyone to Beat the Game. My name's Steve, and today we're going to talk about Green Goblin Mutagen formula and why do I keep losing against this scenario. Alright, well, first things first, we're just going to talk about Green Goblin and the Goblin gimmicks and counter set with the standard cards, and then actually we can talk about modulars that are included in the set as well a little bit later. But first, let's look at what is the recommended scenario if this is your first time playing this game, or if it's you've been playing this and you're just like, I want to beat it the way it's supposed to be dealt. Now, one of the cool things about this scenario, it really feels like Green Goblin is coming at you. He's got pumpkin bombs, he's got his Goblin Glider, there's all sorts of things that are Goblin themed that are just make this scenario super fun and challenging as well. And I think there's a lot of reasons why we lose to this scenario, because it comes at us very fast, as a kind of like a swarm deck. So basically everything is just trying to come at us. The goblins come out as boost cards or as encounter cards. So I think that's where most of the difficulty will lie. And not only that, when the goblins come out as boost cards, when the villain attacks, then they attack us, and then it's like, wow, there's so much damage coming in, and we look at our cards and we're like, I don't know how I can deal that much damage to all these characters without dying. Well, I'm gonna lose the threat if I go down and I'm at 2 health, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So this is, we're gonna take a look at like how we can, play against this scenario, and what are the things that kind of kill us if we're not careful. All right, so let's look at the swarm effect. So first things first, there is 10 goblins in the Green Goblin's deck. There is 6 Goblin Thralls and 4 Goblin Soldiers that will just come in when the villain attacks if they are revealed as boost cards. So this is very harsh, because then it's the villain attacks us, so we take damage, and then or we block and we don't take damage, but then we have to deal with a minion that came into play where previously there was none. So it's very quickly that this scenario can go from 1 minion to like 6 minions in the same like couple of turns. You're just like, what? So one of the first things that makes us lose is not dealing with these minions. Now, a lot of times, like, we want to deal damage directly to the boss, and we was trying to kill the boss as quickly as possible. Now, if you're playing on standard and you're starting off on stage 1, that might be, it might be possible. But when you're starting on stage 2, and if you're playing on the expert mode, that's going to add another level of difficulty. We do start with 1 Goblin Thrall in play. So if you're playing solo, that means there's 1 Goblin in play. That means there's 11 other Goblins in the deck. So these are just the Goblins that come out as boost cards. There's also 2 mini bosses that, if they are revealed as boost cards, will get shuffled in. Or if they are revealed, they are way more powerful. So the other 2 that are very powerful are Monster, and when he is revealed, he will stun you. Remember, he has to be revealed to stun you. So sometimes it says put into play, and then we'll see that as well. And it's not revealed. And then this one here, the Goblin Knight, has a force response that you discard the top card of the encounter deck, and if it's a goblin, you put it into play. So that can be really bad. So these are very powerful mini bosses. 6 health, 7 health. It's pretty good for solo. Those are strong monsters. All right, so this is why we often lose to the Green Goblin. Now, the other reason why we often lose to Green Goblin is Green Goblin also has that force response that can really hurt us. It says force response after Green Goblin attacks and damages you. So it must be you, the character. So if you block with an ally, that will not happen. It must be you, the player, that gets damaged from his attack. All right. place 1 threat on the main scheme. So that is, again, so he's not only coming at you hard with damage, with minions, but he's also coming at you with threat. Now, let's look at the threat. All right, so that is on stage 1 for a standard play. And then let's look at these schemes. All right, let's look at that main scheme. So first of all, the main scheme starts at 2 per player. All right, and then it goes up by 1 per player. So 2 per player, 2 out of 7. So right away, if you're not removing any threat, it's going to go to 3. If he damages you, it's going to go to 4. If he advances, most likely you're going to pop the first stage. So you got to be careful to try to keep that threat under control. But what happens if we complete stage 1? Well, it's not that bad. All right. First of all, in player order, each player not engaged with a goblin minion must discard 3 cards from the encounter deck and put the first goblin minion they discard into play engaged with them. So one of the good things about that is if you already are engaged with a minion, you're not going to trigger this. But if you're playing multiplayer and there's 2 players that are not engaged, you're going to discard 3 cards and then you're going to discard 3 cards. Okay, even if we'll get into little specific rules there. And if there's no minions, no goblins, then too bad. But if there's 3 goblins, remember, it's only the first ones, the other 2 will get discarded. All right, and what happens if it pops off? Well, if it pops off, and then you go to stage 2B, which is 11 per player, which is, wow, that seems pretty high. Yeah, it's pretty good, 11 per player, but it does start with 4 per player. Now, starting from 4 per player, that if you're playing multiplayer, that can seem like a lot. You know, oh shoot, there's 4 players, there's already 16 threat, but it can go up to 44, so that shouldn't be too stressful. Now, one of the things I'm going to say is, if you look at stage, okay, so how does it advance? It says plus X. It doesn't say plus 1 or plus 2. It says plus X. So even if you are in a 4-player game, if there is no goblin minions, all right, the only time it's going to be for each goblin in play. So he is a goblin, so even if there's 4 players, this is only going to go up by 1. So here's the where you want to keep control. If you happen to go to stage 2B and you don't keep the goblin minions under control, this is how you're going to lose. Because if there's 3 goblin minions, it's going to go up by 4. All right, so it can go up pretty fast if you don't keep control of those minions. So I think here there's a good way to mitigate your losses, especially if you're on stage 2. Just keep control of the drones. I still got Ultron in my head. So just keep control of the goblins. If you keep control on the minions, that is going to go up so much less than normal, and then you can always have a break turn where you can go to alter ego, and it's only going up by 1. But again, if there's 4 or 5 minions, do not go to alter ego. You will lose. All right. So that is very, very scary if you don't take care of that. All right. So one thing that is, I think, the stage number. All right, now let's look at Green Goblin stats. All right, so this is some of the things, just the scenario can be really challenging. So let's look at Green Goblin stats. All right, so on standard mode, which is fine, if you're playing this for the first time or if you've played it a couple times on standard, okay, what's the villains? 1 scheme, 2 attack. It's not that bad. It's not that hard. He's not coming at you like an attack of 3 or 4, which can be really, really damaging. Normally, you should be able to defend most of his attacks without taking too much damage. All right, most of the times. And we'll look at the boost stats in a little bit. But on his stage 1, after he damaged you, just place 1 threat. That's not too bad. But what happens if I'm playing standard and I beat him? So I beat his stage 1, then I go to stage 2. What happens on stage 2? When revealed, deal 2 encounter cards to each player. And this is why if you're playing on expert and you're starting on this stage, this is why this can become very, very stressful. Because you are dealing with 2 extra encounter cards per player. And then you're going to deal yourself an encounter card on stage 3 of the villain. So that is going to be 3 extra encounter cards that you're going to have to deal with. So 3 encounter cards. Most of the time, if it's 1 per 1, you're like, okay, there's just a goblin or there's just thing. So that's basically giving the villain 3 activations against you. So that is super stressful. So imagine if there's 2 players, 3 players, 4 players. That is like when you're starting off 2 encounter cards to each player. That's an extra 8 cards that are going to get revealed on that turn. So the more players, the more this scenario will become dangerous because there's so many things that can go wrong. Now, also, he has a force response. He has a scheme of 2 and attack of 2. So his scheme went up by 1. So already there, it's like, ooh, okay, that just +1 can make a big difference, especially if you're playing in solo. And then it says, after Green Goblin damages you, attacks and damages you. It has to be from an attack. Place 1 threat on the main scheme. All right, so again, this can be very dangerous. And if you manage to defeat his 18 health, you win the game if you're playing standard. If you are playing on expert, then there's a 3rd stage, which is very crazy. It's a stage 3 Green Goblin, 20 health, 2 schemes, 3 attack. When revealed, deal yourself 3 encounter cards. So if you guys heard of the term heroic, so basically your first if you're starting on expert, your first turn is basically heroic 2. And then if you're Green Goblin and you've defeated him, then your next turn is heroic 3. So there you go. So that is 4 encounter cards that you have to deal with by yourself. And again, if you're multiple player, just multiply that. So that's an extra 12 encounter cards that are be coming out plus your regular. So that is a 16 encounter card turn if you're in a 4-player game. And that's if you haven't decked out. That's gonna just be insane. So, and there's a lot of bad cards here that can just mess you up. So again, and then his force response, which is even scarier, it says, after Green Goblin attacks and damages you, place 2 threat on the main scheme. So doubling that up. So then you really want to be able to block his attacks or block with allies. So this can be really scary because he can really scheme out fast. Not only through damage, but also through the main scheme. So there you go. So he's coming at you from 2 different fronts simultaneously, so this is why I think is one of the most challenging scenarios out there because, Claw used to come at us with, it wasn't really damage. It was mostly acceleration tokens. And then Ultron was coming at us mostly drones, not really threat at the same time. But this Green Goblin is coming at us both ways and at the same time. So threat when he deals damage, minions come into play. There's so much stuff happening, so very easy to get overwhelmed. All right, so now let's look at damage output, damage potential. So if we look at the boost cards, if we're playing Goblin gimmicks with the standard set, so we're looking at 0 cards. 4 cards with 0 boost icons. So the chances that he gets a boost icon are very small. And then you got 13 cards, so 1, 3. So 13 cards that have the star icon, which means the boost effect. And we already know that 10 of them are the goblins. So there's 4. So that's 17 cards here that are coming in with 0 boost, and 13 out of them have a negative effect. So when you're planning your blocks, just kind of figure out where you're at and where you're doing, especially with the encounter deck, what if you want to know what kind of an attack you're going to get. And then there's 10 cards with a 1 boost. There's 3 cards with a 1 boost and a star. There's then 6 cards in standard with 2 boosts. So 8 cards in expert, and then 2 with 2 stars, and then 3 with 3 boost, and 4 if you're playing on expert. So again, the expert cards, the 3 boost, 2 boost, 3 boost, very small. There's like 8, 10, 13, 14 cards. And if you're looking at like 1 boost or less, you're like 13, 26. There's 30 cards. So again, the ratio is always around 2 to 1 for the lower boost on the lower side. And this has a lot of cards in this encounter deck. So there is a lot of stuff here in this deck. So this is one of the biggest decks for the encounter deck. It's really huge. So there you go. So now we're going to just go over some of the things that are super scary, what are dangerous, what can kill you, what do you have to be aware of, and then we'll look at some of the solutions we can find to help us improve our game versus the Green Goblin. All right, 1 second here. Let's just put these cards in order. All right, looking at level 1 threats. All right, so first of all, when we start the game, we start with 1 Goblin Thrall. So there is 6 copies of the Goblin Thrall, and these are just basically 1/1s with 3 health. So, and they do have guard, so they are a little bit of an annoyance, but they're not the worst card that you can get. All right, so again, they come in as boost cards, and they also come into play when revealed. They don't have any enter the battlefield effects or enter plays. So they're just generic 1/1s with 3 toughness. So again, very easy to kill. Just the annoying part is they have guard, so you do have to deal with them before you can actually deal some damage. So they're a little bit annoying. The other one that is like a level 1 threat that you're not too worried about when they come out is the Regenerative Healing. So if you manage to deal at least 1 damage to the Goblin, you don't really care. If it comes out as a boost, then it comes out as just heals 2 damage. All right. So he heals X damage to double the stage number. So the stage number, if you're on, the stage number is always the villain. So this is stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So those are the stage numbers that you have to go by. So he would heal 2, he would heal 4, he would heal 6. All right. So not, again, very easy card, not too worrisome. Here, again, another one that's not too worrisome is the pumpkin bombs. Now, if you're playing with Goblin gimmicks, there is 3 sets of pumpkin bombs. This is basically an attachment, so it's not the end of the world. It's the next time he attacks, he's gonna, if you haven't dealt with it, he's just gonna discard this and deal 2 indirect damage. So you can put 1 damage on allies that you control. You know, I'll put a damage on my Mockingbird, I'll put a damage on my Lockjaw, and just be fine. All right. So if you have no allies though, but if you do not have allies, then you have to take the damage on yourself. All right. And just remember, you cannot deal indirect damage more than the character can take. So if your Mockingbird only has 1 health left, she cannot take the 2 indirect damage. She can only take 1 for the maximum of HP she has. So there's 3 of those in the deck. Again, very thematic to Green Goblin. Pumpkin bombs throwing and dealing some damage. So that was the level 1, I feel, danger cards, you know, where it comes out, yeah, it's not that bad. All right. This is kind of like 1.5 danger. It's not the end of the world, but it's more of an annoyance than anything. So the next one is the Goblin Soldiers. Let's just put these up here. All right, so the Goblin Soldiers, the reason why they're just a little bit more annoying is they do have the 5 health, and when you defeat one, it deals 1 damage to you. So it's extra salt in the wounds. Like, oh, I just beat you and then you ping me again. So these make it a little bit more frustrating to defeat, and when you have a bunch of those in front of you, you're like, oh. Especially that he comes at you so hard with the Goblin's attacks and everything. And so it's those extra 1 damages, they do accumulate between the pumpkin bombs and these. It's very easy to just, oh man, I'm at 3 health already. Jeez, that was fast. So that's where it becomes a little bit more scary here. So those ones, again, they have 5 health. So that's why they're just a little bit more annoying than the guards at 3. 3 damage is pretty easy to do. 5 damage, most of the time it's going to take you 2 attacks to deal with them. All right, so again, caught off guard, just an annoying card that it's part of the standard set. 1.5 danger. Intimidation, the reason why I didn't put it as a level 1 is it's because you either choose to spend 2 resources, which you're never going to do. Just never. Unless you're really, really scared and you have to go down to Alter Ego and he's going to scheme with an extra boost, then I would pay for it. But if not, just give him that boost card and then whatever. And most of the time, it's going to be a Goblin. So don't worry about it. But Intimidation, yeah, it's not a super dangerous card. It's just basically give him an extra boost card and just block with an ally or something like that when the next time he attacks. So just be careful. Again, the reason I put it 1.5 is just because if you do happen to have to go to Alter Ego and then he gets that boost card while you're in Alter Ego, then it can kind of lead to the next stage of the scenario, and that can make it a little bit more problematic for you. All right, and then 1.5 again, Goblin Glider. All right, so there's 3 of them if you're playing with the Goblin Gimmicks encounter set. So Goblin Glider gives the villain +1 attack. Now, if the Goblin already has it, so if let's say Green Goblin already has it and there's a minion in play, you attach this to a minion. So that's cool. If there's no other minions in play because you've done such a good job controlling minions, it's going to surge. So that is going to be a little bit problematic. So you want to get rid of those as soon as possible. Again, giving him a +1 attack is just going to increase his chances of placing threat when he damages you. So if you're playing leadership, or if you're playing another one that has a lot of defense and you're never taking any damage, then you're fine. Leave it on, or just spend the 2 lightning resources and get rid of it. Again, that +1 attack. It's not the worst card to get as an encounter card because it's basically an attachment. So just like put it on him. Oh, get rid of it next turn. Oh, he gets another one. Well, whatever. So you can just kind of deal with that and then just not have to deal with the +1 attack or the surges if you just constantly just get rid of it. Sometimes just spending those 2 resources will help you in the long run. Yeah, you're not advancing your board state, but you're taking away from what he has, and that's always good. All right. So those were kind of like the 1.5 danger for here. Now, level 2 dangers, these are the side schemes, Overruns. All right, so Overrun is a pretty cool side scheme. It's basically it's 1 per player, so it's not that hard to remove. 1 per player is nothing. All right, so if there's 4 players, there's only 4 threat on this, but it does give double acceleration tokens, which is crazy. All right, so that means the scheme goes up by 1, it goes up by 3 instead. So that is something you do not want to keep in play unless you are how to say this. All right, so you have to time your overruns. All right, sometimes dealing with the extra 2 threat is easier than having to deal with all the minions. All right, so what I normally do when I get those out and I see those is I always look at the encounter deck discard pile. I'm like, okay, I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's 12 goblins in here. I've seen 8 goblins. What are the odds that I'm going to see another 2 goblins? All right, not good. All right, then I'd rather just deal with a goblin than having to deal with the threat. So this is where you have to decide by looking at your discard pile and just kind of thinking about, what are the odds? All right, monster's gone. This guy's gone. All right, perfect. These guys are not in the black. Done. Just do it. All right. So that makes it very easy. And if you're playing in a multiplayer game, just remember that it's 2 cards per player. So you start with the first player and then go down the load. So you want to make sure that, again, you take a look, see how many goblins they are. The good thing about this is if when you're playing 4-player, instead of having 12 minions, there's only 8. So that's good. And it's only goblin minions. So if you're playing with, let's say, Anachronauts or a Doomsday Chair or even Legions of Hydra, all of those guys do not come into play. So that is super, super good. It's only goblin minions that come into play. So again, so you can play this scenario with a couple of modular sets that make it tougher. And then if they're not goblins, they don't come into play. All right. Next one, pretty scary, Goblin Reinforcements. This is a level 2 threat. Again, it's basically if you, again, keep control of those minions, and this card will not be a problem for you. Because if there's only 1 minion, there's only 3 threat on there, you can manage that. If, there's 7 or 8 minions in play, and that comes in with like 10 threat, you're not going to be able to get rid of it, and then that's basically giving you an extra encounter card every turn. So again, try to keep those minions under control, and this card will never be a problem for you. So this is going to make this very, very easy as long as you keep control of those minions. Remember, you want to think about, you know, strategy and what can kill you, and then extra encounter cards will most likely kill you. So they'll just add to your burden and your pain. So getting rid of these is going to be very, very important. All right, the other ones, obviously, Assault, Advance. Assault, again, because, you know, he attacks you, you can place threat. Advance. The reason why I put Advance as a 2 level threat, not a 3, is because you do have a lot of leeway in this scenario. So even if it does go to the next stage, you have 11 threat threshold. So unless he's scheming for like 10, then like in a turn, then you should be okay. So the advances are not that bad, but the assault, obviously, the more he schemes and attacks, if he gets goblin minions, he puts them into play. So that can just be problematic. So that's why it's not too scary for these, but it is something that you want to be careful for. All right, this one is by far one of the silent killers of this game. Goblin Nation. Each goblin enemy, including Green Goblin, it's +1 attack. There's only 2 threat here on this. If you are playing solo, you need to get rid of this, because then all the goblin thralls, goblin minions, all the goblin minions get +1 attack. That is craziness, especially if you get unlucky and he comes in and you got the intimidation boost and then he puts in 2 ones. So those goblin thralls now attack for 2 each. Now that can be really, really painful, and it can really bring you down on your HP very, very fast. So Goblin Nation, once you see that, and it comes out as a boost as well. So if it comes out as a boost, so the goblin is going to go from 2 to 3 attack or 3 to 4 attack immediately. So this effect comes into play and then it's revealed. All right, so right away it goes in, boom, into play, and then goblin gets his +1 attack. So definitely want to get rid of those, because that can definitely kill you, especially if you're, you know, I'll just take care of the minions on the next turn, and then there's like 3-4 minions, and then this card comes out, and then you're just like, oh man, I'm dead. All right, so this is one of the silent killers, Goblin Nation, and I'll teach you. You know, there's a couple cards that can really, really help against these types of cards, and you can want to save those, and we'll talk about like ways to mitigate that in a minute. All right, the other ones that are kind of scary, and this is more of a gamble more than anything else, these Wicked Ambitions. All right, there's 2 copies of that. Again, they're not if you're in the early game, then these can become really, really harsh. But if you've seen a lot of goblins already, then you're like, oh, okay, phew. Most of the times here, you'll on average you'll put in 1 or 2 goblins in play, or you'll just take like 3 damage. So what I would say is, if you get like the mini bosses, or you get the Goblin Soldiers, it's worth paying that 3 life, because he's gonna come in, he's gonna attack you, he's gonna deal 1 damage. Sometimes just taking that 3 damage and not having to deal 5 damage to the boss is going to be worth it, because remember, you can always recover. So sometimes just take the damage. If it's a goblin thrall, then just leave it, because most of the times you can get rid of those. But Goblin Soldier, Monster, and Goblin Knight, if you have the health, get rid of them. Just pay the 3 life and just don't have them come into play. That's going to make your game easier. Don't forget. All right, so that one's kind of scary here. One of the crazy cards, and this is the first time we actually get to see this, is I See You. So the Green Goblin attacks you. So again, it seems like a normal attack, but even if you are in alter ego, so let's say you're like, and normally when you go to alter ego, you have low health. So this can be very scary, especially if you don't have an ally that can block for you. Yes, he does not get a boost card when he attacks, but still, he will attack you even in alter ego form. So that can be super, super dangerous for just dying out of nowhere. Also, if it comes out as a boost card, he gets +1 attack if you are engaged with a goblin. So if it's not, then it's just +1. But if you are engaged with a goblin, it's going to be a boost of 2. All right. But again, this card, watch out for, especially when you're in mid game and you're like, oh man, I haven't stabilized yet, but I need to recover, and this comes out. That's a game ender. All right, so be careful. And then we have the standard, exhaustion and master plan and under fire, all cards that are super nasty that you don't want to see. Level 2 dangers, and then gang up. Again, if you haven't taken care of the encounter cards, that can just be the minions that can just kill you right there. Especially if you get that Goblin Nation into play and you're just like, oh man. So really, if you don't take care of stuff as you do it or as the scenario advances, if you just leave there and just try to focus on damage against this scenario, things like this are just going to come in and wreck your day on a constant basis. But if you don't worry too much about damage in the beginning, you keep control of the board, then all these cards that I'm showing you are going to be way less dangerous. All right. And you're going to be like, oh man, I feel like in control. All right, I got this. Yeah, that's fine. But if you choose to ignore a lot of the things that are out there, choose to ignore the accelerations, choose to ignore the extra encounter card, choose to ignore the minions, they're going to come back and they're going to gang up on you. There you go. I plug the card, and then they're just going to come out and take you out of the game. All right. Now let's look at the level 3 cards that are very, very dangerous. Monster. When revealed, you get stunned. So him, very, very dangerous. He stuns you, and if you're already stunned, you take 2 damage. So that can be really, really harsh. And he has 3 attack, 1 scheme, and 6 health. So this guy, definitely a level 3 threat that you want to take out right away. The other one that you want to take out right away, Goblin Knight. Oh man. So Goblin Knight, again, he's going to accelerate the villain's deck, which is, whatever, because it's pretty big. But if it is a goblin, he actually adds more goblins. So then you have the goblin that can do that when he attacks. And if it's a boost card that's a goblin, he comes back in. Oh yeah, I did forget something here. These guys both have a star that if you reveal them as a boost card, they will get shuffled back in the deck. All right, and then there's a little something here I got to talk about in a minute. But then, okay, so discard 1 card from the encounter deck. If that card is a goblin, put it into play. So that means he's going to attack, and that new goblin will also attack you. Because if he's attacking, then you're in stage 2, where the villain and all the minions engage with you attack. So he's going to want to attack you as well. And then the new goblin is going to attack you as well. So that can be really, really problematic. Now, a little side note here. Let's say you have 1 encounter card in the deck, all right? And it's either Goblin Knight, and this has happened to me multiple times, all right? If it's when revealed, okay? A boost card. After this activation ends, shuffle this card into the encounter deck. So I made this mistake a bunch of times at first. I was like, oh, I only have Monster left in my encounter deck. All right, so Monster is going to be my encounter card for everyone. Is it going to be a 2 boost for everyone? No, that's not how that works. So the boost card will get revealed. All right, we're going to shuffle the encounter deck. Shuffle, and then he's going to shuffle back into the deck. All right, if he's the last card. Let's say he's the last card in your boost cards. All right, in the encounter deck. So you're going to get an acceleration, and then he's going to shuffle back into the deck, and then you'll have other boost cards for the rest. So that is a mistake that I made when I first started playing against this scenario. I thought, oh yeah, that's easy. Oh, I know I'm going to get a boost of 2 for everyone. No, that's not how that works. So just remember this. Every time the deck runs out, there's no cards in the villain deck, immediately shuffle the deck and then resolve anything else. All right, so that is for these 2 cards. Okay, then again, there's always Shadow of the Past. That's super, super annoying. So it can just come out of nowhere. And then these are kind of the other deadly killers in this deck. So Hysteria. Now this one is an attachment plus star. But basically, what is the star? It does nothing, Steve. No. When Green Goblin schemes or attacks, give him an additional boost card for that activation. So that means he's double boosting every time, just like Claw, but not only on attack, but also on scheme. So this can just kill you if you do not get rid of this, and it's double mental as well. So some decks cannot deal with that. So just be very, very sure that when that comes out, that you do have an answer for that, because it will kill you 95% of the time if you're playing in solo. If you're in multiplayer, maybe you have a little bit more of a chance to get rid of it. But once that comes out, definitely want to spend those resources to get rid of that. Make that a priority. And then the other 3 cards that are very dangerous here are Overconfidence. There's only 1 in the deck, which is nice. If you're an alter ego, he schemes. If he schemes with 3 threat more, he gets a surge, so he's going to get something else. Same thing for Green Goblin. Attacks you. If at least 3 damage was dealt by this activation, it gains surge as well. So remember, dealing damage has to deal damage, like real damage. So if he attacks you for 5 and you block for 3, with not an ally, because an ally doesn't have any defense, but if you block with, let's say, your Captain America and he only deals 2 damage, then you're fine. All right, so that's how damage is calculated. You know, plus minus defense, that's the damage. All right, so this one can be really scary when you get that, especially if you're an alter ego, because it's very easy that he schemes. And then this is the deadliest card in his deck. It's Death from Above. So this, he schemes with plus scheme or plus attack equal to the villain's stage number. So that means if you are on stage 1, he's going to get a +1, a +2, or a +3 to whatever. So this can just come out and just finish the job, especially on like if you are an alter ego. If he's scheming for 2 + 3, that's 5 plus a boost, man, most likely you're just scheming out there. That is one of the scariest cards here in the encounter deck. And if he attacks you and you don't have any blockers, that can also be very dangerous. All right, so one way to avoid dying from this card is, even if you have an ally, all right, make sure that you can take that first attack. All right, most of the time just take that first attack. The encounter cards are what are dangerous. All right, from extra attacks, especially these 2. Until you haven't seen those go by, don't block. Don't be too hasty to block with your allies. Just keep maybe one of those allies, just like, I'm not going to use him just yet. I'm going to keep him for a little bit. All right, so that's mostly like, all right, this is what can kill us. This is what we can do. Now, what are options? What heroes can we use, or what can we do to kind of help on certain of these situations? Well, the best thing I can do is one of the cards that it comes from the Black Widow pack. I would say to include here. I would even include all the way, or maybe even including 2 in a deck, unless you're playing Black Widow. But target acquired. It says after a boost card is turned face up, discard target acquired and cancel that boost card effect. So here, if you don't want, let's say, Goblin Knight to reshuffle, and you are in hero form, and you get that as a boost card, there you go. Goblin Knight just goes to the discard pile. Goblin will still get that 2 boost, that 2 pip boost, but the effect of the star to shuffle is not going to come. So you're sure that for that entire deck pass, Goblin Knight is not coming back out. Same thing for monster, or same thing, one of the cards that, like I said, the silent and deadly killer here. Normally, this is what I keep this for. I keep my target acquired for Goblin Knight, Goblin Soldier, Goblin Knight, Goblin Monster, and Goblin Nation. Those are the 3 cards that this target acquired I'm going to be putting in, and those are the cards I want to avoid. All right, because if you get to avoid those, that is going to make your game go way easier. All right, the next thing, if you're playing on standard, one of the easy tips and tricks that I can give you, if you're playing on standard, when you get to 15 damage, all right, when you get to 15 damage, wait until you kill him. Don't kill him, just wait a turn. All right, so go to 15 damage. All right, then keep him at 1, keep him really low. All right, and if you're playing in solo, or even if you're playing multiplayer, keep him at like the lowest health possible without killing him. All right, give me 1 second. Someone's calling. All right, so where was that? Sorry. Phone rings. All right, why do I have to answer? All right, so yeah, so you want to bring him to the closest as you can to death without having to kill him. Now, the reason why is because once you do kill him, you can actually get him and try to bring him as far down as you possibly can, and try to have that 18 damage ready to go. So Once you guys are in the mid to late game, it's very easy for heroes to be able to do a big chunk of damage. All right, so like big damage events, like 2 web kicks for Spider-Man and then attack, and boom, you're done. So you want to kind of try to time your turn so you do not have to deal with those 2 extra encounter cards. Same thing when going from stage 2 to stage 3. If you can do that, where he doesn't go and you doesn't have to deal with those 3 extra encounter cards, man, that is going to be boss. So you can kind of cheat the game a little bit by beat the game, cheat the game. Who knows? All right. So this is a great way to do that. Now again, if you're playing a 3-4 player game, this can still be done, because again, once everyone is set up and everyone has all their cards, and the game has gone long enough, everyone should be like, man, okay, I got a good damage turn. All right, we're flipping him next turn. We're flipping him next turn. And then you just deal a massive amount of damage and then just survive the next round. And then just like, all right, everyone go to Alter Ego. Cool. Okay, the threat is under control. This is under control. Everyone go to Alter Ego. Let him do whatever he wants. Place 100 goblins and then just clean up and finish the game. Boom, done. That is your best strategy against the Green Goblin Mutagen formula. Try to deal with everything, and then once you're ready to kill, once you're ready to take him out, just flip down, get a big turn, or flip or kill him, deal as much as damage, flip down, let him do whatever he wants, and put the schemes and everything, and then boom, done. But again, just make sure when you do that both advances are gone. Especially if you're still on stage 1, you're fine. But if you're on stage, let's say on stage 2, and there's no threat on, there's no goblins, it's only going by 1, even if he gets the 2 advances, you should be fine, because it's only going up by 1, and then he's going to scheme for 2 and maybe 5. Let's say he goes up to 5, so that goes up to 6. Now the only other card is Death from Above that kills you. So there's only 2 cards that can kind of take you out if you're that. So just make sure that, hey, I've seen both of them go by, I'm safe. Most of what he's going to be putting, he's going to be putting in goblins and stuff like that. So as long as you kind of know what's left in the encounter deck, then you can kind of make your decisions better. And I think that is what's going to help you guys beat the game against Green Goblin Mutagen formula. Again, can I do this in every aspect? Hells yeah. All right. Again, it's all about control the board. Build your character as much as you can. Don't worry too much about damage in the beginning, and then just keep control of the board. Everything else, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's very easy to defeat Green Goblin Mutagen if you stick to that kind of game plan. I will build my board state. I will take care of minions. I do not really care about damage. Once that's done, and you've built up and you have your engine running, and you're doing like 2 hammer throws with Thor, or you're using, let's say, Captain America, and you can punch him, shield toss, bang bang bang, kill everything. This is all possible in every aspect. Remember, your heroes have great potential for doing damage. Every hero has everything they need to deal a massive amount of damage and deal with everything. All right, the designers were very smart in this. There's not one hero, oh, this hero sucks against this scenario. No, every hero can do it all, right? You just need to build your deck accordingly. If you're going protection, if you're doing protection, use those damage preventions to avoid the threat being placed there, because protection has a little bit more trouble with threat control. All right, so make sure that Goblin, when he attacks you, that you're preventing most of the damage, so he's not putting that extra threat on. If you're playing Justice, they'll make sure you have a hero that can deal a lot of damage, and then Justice cards will take care of threat. And then just do leadership. Well, leadership, just have allies that do stuff. And then aggression, there's great cards in aggressions now that deal damage, that remove threat. So just build your deck accordingly, and then you would never have trouble with this scenario again. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this will clear out some stuff, and then you can have a better understanding of threat assessment. But again, I'm going to state it, as always, I'm going to state this the same. Build your character. Every character can do everything as long as you make the right decisions and focus on the real problem. All right? Find find where you're losing, identify what's making you lose the game, and then work on that. And then you should always be fine. Guys, this was Steve reminding you to keep on playing Marvel Champions, and I hope this video will help you beat the game. Ciao, ciao.